A few years ago, in honor of Marvel Month, I ranked my top 10 favorite Marvel superheroes. I think to shamelessly tie into a new Avengers movie, or maybe a Spider-Man movie, I don't remember, but it was shameless. Well, guess what? We've got a new Mortal Kombat game coming out very soon. Or possibly already out if I fail to get this video out on time, and with the technical difficulties I probably won't. So, it's time to shamelessly tie into that by counting down my top 10 favorite Mortal Kombat characters. With a K, obviously. 2 Ks? No, that might look weird. I don't talk about the series a lot, so I wouldn't be surprised if the average viewer didn't know, but I'm actually a huge Mortal Kombat fan. I've loved the series since the first entry on SNES. Yes, I'm that old. And I've followed it very closely ever since. The only entries I haven't played are the spin-off titles, Mythology Sub-Zero, Special Forces, and Shaolin Monks, though I've heard I'm not missing much with those, and I also haven't played Mortal Kombat Gold, though I spent a very long time trying to find a copy of it back when I still owned a Dreamcast, so that one kinda hurts, even though I hear it's also not good. Pretty much every other title, though, I've played at least a little bit of. I even owned some of the handheld ports, like Mortal Kombat 3 on the Game Boy. It's not terrible, actually. And the GBA port of Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, which is also surprisingly good. I talk more about it on another list dealing with handheld versions of console games. I'll stop with the self-promotion now, though. The point is, I've spent the last 20 plus years being pretty obsessed with Mortal Kombat and its convoluted lore. I'm even a pretty big defender of the GameCube PS2 era of Mortal Kombat games that most people hate. So, while I wouldn't call myself the leading authority on Mortal Kombat character ranking, I am very familiar with basically every character in the series, and I'd argue I'm less biased than most about which characters are actually awesome and which ones just trigger nostalgia. To be clear though, everyone has a personal bias. So, with that said, let's jump into the list.
Takeda.
This is a very new character, introduced in MKX, but before the DLC came out with Triborg, he was kind of the standout to me as that game's take on a cybernetic character. I personally think that surrounded by other characters who felt like budget versions of their parents' movesets, such as Jackie Briggs and Cassie Cage, Takeda was unique compared to his father Kenshi, and therefore was the coolest member of the Combat Kids. It can be hard to discuss characters from NKX because they have 3 separate sets of moves, but I personally think his electrified chain moveset is his best, and that's largely what got him a spot on this list. Mechanically, he relies a lot on flips and spins, and I love the more quick acrobatic characters, so pair that with electrified whips and it's almost like he was made just for me. Part of what sets him apart also, I think, is that he was raised by Scorpion, which makes him more morally ambiguous than his father, so his character arc in MKX is more interesting than most of the other Combat Kids, who are just on missions dictated by their parents. Yes, I acknowledge that Takeda does still take a lot from his father, as he has a moveset where he uses a normal sword, and some of his powers do revolve around telekinesis, but his cybernetic enhancements, as well as his connection to Scorpion and his abandonment by his father, make him stand out in my mind.
Kenshi.
Takeda's father ranks slightly above his son because he has more legacy and is a bit more unique than most of the other swordsman characters. Sure, his design is fairly generic as the red ninja palette swap of Ermac, but his diverse moveset mixing swordplay with telekinesis makes him much more fun than Ermac. And I love how effective he is as a fighter despite being blind, leading to a "I don't need to see to kick your ass" attitude. He feels like Mortal Kombat's take on Daredevil in the best way, and the fact that he's become such an iconic character to the franchise, despite coming out of the mostly forgotten GameCube era, really proves how iconic he is. Almost every other still popular character in the series came from the first 3 games, and the variations of the 3rd game, as well as a few bad guys from Mortal Kombat 4, like Quan Chi and Shinnok. But Kenshi was introduced in Deadly Alliance, which also introduced such memorable characters as Su Hao, who was so bad that he's the only character, aside from Chameleon who doesn't even count, who was officially removed from the opening cinematic of MK9 that was supposed to have all the characters, since it was kind of a retelling of Armageddon. That's really bad, right? Obviously, I mostly jest, as there are a few other iconic characters from that era. Bo Rai Cho is still around after all, but he sucks and I hate him, so I'd rather he be forgotten with all the rest. Story-wise, Kenshi is still that kind of bland, always do good for the sake of good character that I usually don't like, similar to Liu Kang, but I'm always a sucker for the character that overcomes disability through the aid of supernatural powers, and his animations in combat always highlight that nicely, by having his character not look directly at combatants, emphasizing his reliance on other senses. This is one character that I have a hard time explaining why I like him so much. Maybe it's just because I personally love that era of Mortal Kombat games, so I root for the characters that came out of it, but he's just really cool.
Frost.
Speaking of cool characters coming out of that era of Mortal Kombat games, Frost is another one that I wish we'd get more of. I was really excited by the rumors of her being playable in Mortal Kombat 11, and while it's all but been confirmed, I haven't seen her in action yet. And considering how much a lot of other characters have been changed and improved in this game, I can't wait to see what they could do to make her different from Sub-Zero. To me, she's always been more than just female Sub-Zero. Though Mortal Kombat Armageddon didn't do her any favors as far as diversifying movesets, but that game dumbed down pretty much every character, so I don't blame that on her just being a clone. After all, there is literally a clone of Sub-Zero. There was even 2 Sub-Zeros in one game before. At least Frost has a unique design, not just another ninja palette swap, and her own interesting backstory that's still evolving since she was briefly part of the story in MKX. So if she really does return in MK11, I'm excited to see where it will take her character, and to have her fleshed out more, as she has so much more potential than any game has realized so far. She basically started just as a protege to Sub-Zero, but she had wild tendencies that couldn't be tamed. She even tried to basically take Sub-Zero's power for herself, but she couldn't control it and it froze her. She's later revived, but still out of control, and gets frozen again during her brief appearance in MKX. It's kind of a shame that this strong character with ice powers is so easily frozen and discarded. So I hope MK11 allows her a chance to be more integral to the plot and not just quickly disposed of. I also hope they don't turn her into a cybernetic ice character like they did Sub-Zero before. She needs an arc unique to herself, or else the girl Sub-Zero judgments won't go away.
Cyrax Sector.
Speaking of robots though, they're not all bad. These two are the OG cybernetic characters. And while you can say I'm cheating by including these two together, you'd also have to say MKX was cheating by creating Triborg, so just give me this one, okay? The reason I'm grouping them though, is because they're on equal footing in my mind, but I also don't think they were worthy of 2 slots. But I never got the DLC in MKX that includes Triborg, and therefore don't know if he'd have served this pick better, so this is how we're doing it. Anyway, these guys are both awesome, even if the games haven't always known how to use them. For example, going back to MK Armageddon, Cyrax only has like half his moveset. He can't even use his iconic net move in that game. It's really bad. In the early days when they were first introduced though, they were 2 of my favorite characters to play as, and just technical enough, due to the different range of their grenades and missiles, that they weren't totally overpowered. And while some character movesets are fairly forgettable or similar to other characters, I will always remember Cyrax's weird chest saw and ability to explode and reform, as well as Sector's flamethrower and missiles. They also have really cool backstories, as they were normal human ninjas that volunteered for cybernetic enhancements when the Lin Kuei decided that robotic ninjas would be more effective and easier to control. This is made even more interesting when, ironically, Cyrax defects from the Lin Kuei and joins Sonya, Jax, and the rest of the good guys, proving that even robotic ninjas can't be controlled so easily. This also means that Cyrax and Sector are pitted against each other multiple times over their different views, making for some really interesting story conflicts. I will also never get over their original character portraits and how they basically look like 2 opposing football players on the character select screen. Old school Mortal Kombat was just the best.
Kung Lao.
This is actually a tricky example, because he used to be one of my all-time favorites, but he hasn't evolved much over the years. That can be good and bad, since I know that anytime I have to play as him, I'll be pretty okay, but it also means that 10 games in, spin-offs not included, a majority of which he's playable in, he's just not that interesting anymore. Especially since his story hasn't evolved much in that time. He's another goody two-shoes character, often paired with Liu Kang. He's died and been revived a few times, but aside from that, there's a surprising lack of depth to his character arc, considering how long he's been a stable character. What he lacks in depth, though, he makes up for with just a super cool moveset tied around his super sharp hat and some mastery of wind, it seems. I don't really know the source of his powers, but he can, do cool spins and launch into the air and stuff, so he's an airbender, alright? It's canon. The point is, sometimes characters are just cool. They don't need a super crazy backstory or awesomely unique design. This is where our personal bias comes in, okay? That being said, he's a quality staple of the series, but other cooler characters have been added while he's pretty much stayed the same, so let's move on.
Jade.
Everyone has their own favorite ninjas, both male and female, but to me, nothing beats Jade's green outfit and staff. Katana is awesome too, and I loved her in MK2 before Jade was officially added, but over time, I just feel like Jade has become a more interesting character, while Katana has stayed pretty much the same in all her appearances. She's another one where you see a trailer with her moveset and you're like, yep, that's Katana alright. Except for her appearance in MKX, where, that's right, she had some of Jade's moves, proving that even Katana is better when she's given Jade's moveset. I'm a sucker for superpowered characters carrying staffs, though. I blame Gambit. I also like that her story is complex and tragic, but not overcomplicated like some of the characters that have been in almost every game. Her backstory ties all the female ninjas together nicely, as they're all kind of related to each other, with Jade being Katana's friend and bodyguard, and Melina being a clone or twin of Katana, depending on what lore you follow. Jade is more unique than the other female ninjas, though, because she isn't related to the others and tends to just come and go as she pleases, even if that did kind of lead to her death in MK9. Plus, let's be honest, her staff attacks are just really cool, and I'm super excited she's coming back to MK11, looking better than ever. Not sure how to feel about her basically being a zombie, though.
Noob Silent.
I know this pick just strokes Ed Boon's already massive ego, but I'm a sucker for characters born from hidden secrets and then later fleshed out into full interesting characters, and I personally think Noob is the best example of this. Even down to his appearance and moveset changing from game to game until he was officially added to the roster. I'm trying not to spend too much time on lore here, but since it's a big part of why Noob is awesome, bear with me for a bit. He was first a secret character in Mortal Kombat 2, only appearing to fight you after winning 50 matches in a row. He was just an all-black ninja palette swap with a mix of Sub-Zero and Scorpion's moves. Most hidden characters from Mortal Kombat 2, of which there's a surprising amount, became playable in Mortal Kombat 3, but Noob stayed secret, being replaced by an all-black palette swap of Kano, strangely. He was finally made playable in the weird second version of MK3, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, as well as the other weird version of MK3 called Mortal Kombat Trilogy, which were both released around the same time but on different consoles. People complain about DLC, but man, amending games in the 90s was way worse. Anyway, with Noob's official moveset finally fleshed out, everyone could see how great he was, and how overpowered he was. He still wasn't totally unique yet, though, as later games would give him moves more reliant on his shadow, and one game paired him with smoke, strangely, maybe implying that was his shadow? And MK11 looks to be going total Grim Reaper with him, scythe and all, so he's a character that seems to always be in flux, and maybe that's how it should be for a character with such mystery surrounding him. But, in conclusion, does anyone really not like Noob? He's an easy pick. He's weird, he's overpowered, but darn it, he throws his own shadow around, and that's just cool.
Raiden.
I'll admit, I think a lot of the OG Mortal Kombat characters are overrated, as they're the ones that everyone knows, and also the ones most likely to appear in basically every game. They're the Gen 1 Pokemon of Mortal Kombat. Mostly well designed and balanced, but I'm kind of over them, and a lot more clever characters have come out since. Something about Raiden still stands out after all these years, though. Maybe it's because I love lightning powers, maybe it's because he had a pretty awesome guest appearance in Injustice 2 alongside Black Lightning, or maybe I just remember him a little too fondly from the movies. Spoilers, he's really bad in them, and I'm just jaded by my dumb kid nostalgia.
I don't think so.
But I will always have a soft spot for Raiden. Can't help it. I don't even mind that they've made him evil a few times. I mean, after a while, the pressures of being a god gets to everyone. Like, if everyone went around calling me a thunder god, I'd definitely go on a power trip. I get a big head when my wife compliments me too much. That's why she has to even it out by being mean sometimes.
Stop talking to the internet. Nobody wants to hear your opinions.
Too mean. And true. Anyway, Raiden has long been kind of the puppet master of Mortal Kombat lore, as he just zaps in to move the pawns around, and occasionally has to actually participate himself when it comes to other god characters like Shinnok or Quan Chi mucking about with the state of things. Honestly, a big reason why the Mortal Kombat reboot with the 9th game was so cool is because it basically has Raiden spending the whole game trying to alter the events of the first Mortal Kombat tournament from that first game to prevent Armageddon from happening. And that messing around with time is what makes Kronika come in and basically leads to the even crazier time shenanigans in MK11 that I can't wait to play. In short, Raiden is just awesome, both mechanically and lore-wise. And he's one of the few characters from the original game who I feel has gotten more interesting over the years, rather than just stayed pretty stale.
Devora.
It might seem crazy to include such a new character so high on this list, but I'm totally serious when I say that she's one of the best fighting game character designs I've ever seen, and proof that even 10 games in, Mortal Kombat hasn't lost its touch in creating new characters. You might have thought that for a while there, as they made more and more bland characters that just served power set functions, like Ashra, Cobra, Mavado, Li Mei. I could go on, but yeah, how many of those characters have you even heard of? Exactly. But Devora, with only one appearance, stood out as MVP of that game, and is looking to continue to be one of the best playable fighters in MK11, a game that has seemingly rebuilt a majority of the old characters from scratch, but left Devora mostly intact because she was already pretty much perfect. Though it does look like she can turn into a giant bee now? Man, she's so cool. It's kind of weird that I like her so much, honestly, because past attempts at these more grotesque characters have failed miserably. Look at Draman. But I think it helps that they commit so hard to a moveset and make her so much fun to play, albeit also really gross. Are those vagina bees? Also, her stingers are super fun to quickly combo into moves and catch opponents off guard, and her fatalities are deliciously grotesque in a way that only the sick monsters at NetherRealm can come up with.
Baraka.
Anyone who follows me on social media knows that I've been basically spamming my love of Baraka lately since he was announced as coming back for MK11, but you might not realize that I've been 100% serious about him being the best Mortal Kombat character, so I hope this list puts that to rest. And honestly, I'm not sure I can even explain why. He's a very creepy design with his razor-sharp teeth, scaly skin, and slimy voice, but ever since his first appearance in Mortal Kombat 2, he's the one I always main whenever he's playable. Maybe it was because I didn't own MK2, so I booted it up for the first time, saw a bunch more humanoid ninja characters that seemed similar to what I had at home with MK1, and then there was him. So, anytime I got a chance to play it with friends, I'd default to him because that was the character I already knew. Or maybe it's the arm blades. They're super rad. They also lead to some absolutely brutal Wolverine-style combos of alternating between kicks, punches, and knives through the face. That's what I don't get. Everyone loves Wolverine, but saying I love Baraka seems to be controversial. Like, newsflash everyone, there's maybe 20 characters out of the 70 plus total that are actually any good. The rest are either totally forgettable or just palette swaps that have only been fleshed out more in recent games. That's a big reason why I tried to diversify my list so as not to just have a bunch of different colored ninjas. Even though they're all perfectly good characters, I guess. Except Reptile. I hate Reptile. Baraka, alternatively, was one of the earliest characters and still stands apart from most others. Honestly, in my time with MKX, I spent most of it trying to get good with Aaron Black and his Staccato Blade moveset because it was the closest I could get to actually playing as Baraka in that game. Whereas a lot of characters have morals, or pull their punches until it comes time for a super gross fatality that seems out of character for them, Baraka is an unapologetic animal that eviscerates anyone and then eats the remains, probably. He embodies what Mortal Kombat is, a brutal competition to be the best at any cost. And he seems like the kind of guy that would stab his own mother if she got in his way. I probably shouldn't like that, but I do? Huh. This list is teaching me some things about myself. That's my list. Like my picks? Dislike this video as soon as I mention Baraka? Let me know your thoughts and your picks in the comments below. I really enjoy coming up with these lists, and I wish you all would discuss them more with me. So, let's fix that now. And hey, if you're picking up MK11, let me know where you're playing it, and maybe we can go 1v1. I'll probably lose, but darn it, I'll give it my all. And speaking of all, that's all for this video.
This video sounds like it's gonna suck.
Finish him!
Why? He never finishes me.
Brutality.
I don't know if I can do it.
Yeah. Why not?
Why? He never finishes me.